You should have seen, at least on the internet, this sculpture, under which the Porsche was actually hidden. Or this flattened house? No, this is not a deformation of the image. It is literally a physically compressed house. These are all the works of a sculptor who exhibited photographs of his works when he did not have the money to send real ones to the exhibition. This is an artist who reinterpreted sculpture to the point that he seriously offered a statuette in the form of a pickled cucumber as an award for a prestigious business award. This is the person who did this, this, and this. And many other examples of modern art. Today our hero is Erwin Wurm and the cars he turned into sculptures. At a certain point in his career, Erwin Wurm began to regularly use cars in his art because they are rich in cultural symbolism. My name is Yulia, you're on the Transport Stories channel, and this is another video about cars, where I'm going to start with something other than cars. Today we start with cucumbers. Check if you are subscribed to the channel, and if not, subscribe. Around 2017, I visited a friend of mine who lived in Austria at the time, near Salzburg. Salzburg is a rather classical and conservative city in terms of art and architecture. It is proud to be the birthplace of the famous composer Mozart. Yes, that's where everyone brings these sweets from. The city's tourist map is filled with various houses, museums, palaces, mansions, cathedrals, and parks. That's why I just couldn't help but notice the cucumbers in the very center of the city. Yes, big metal cucumbers. At the time, to be honest, I didn't really understand what it was about and didn't ask about it. But when I started writing this script and researching artists who used cars in their installations, I discovered Erwin Wurm. And his approach was revealed to me through these cucumbers. Erwin Wurm is a 54-year-old Austrian painter, sculptor, and photographer known for his unusual and often humorous approach to depicting everyday life. I love the ephemeral and the non-existent because we are completely controlled by things and define ourselves through the possession of things. So, cucumbers. Wurm was once asked by the Austrian economic magazine G, Vin, to create a statuette that they would give to the most successful companies and managers. He suggested a cucumber because in English cucumber means pickle. Not just any cucumber, but a pickled cucumber. And the expression "get a pickle" is an idiom that means find a way out of a difficult situation. It refers to a pickle that is difficult to pull out of the bottom of a jar. The magazine did not understand the idea of making a statuette in the form of a cucumber for the most successful companies and rejected it. Too serious, you see, gentlemen. However, 2 years later, he was commissioned to make a statuette for an Austrian dance competition. He again offered a pickled cucumber, and this time, the customers agreed. That was the beginning of his journey with cucumbers. Apart from the clever play on words that preceded the idea, pickles are a classic middle-class food for Austrians. The climate is cold, and there are no fresh vegetables in winter, so people pickle cucumbers in the fall. Pickled cucumbers with sausages is the author's childhood. And this is an experience that is common to all Austrians. The sausage sculptures, by the way, also appeared later. In the same year, 2008, he created a self-portrait in which he actually disassembled his personality from a jar of pickles. On many components, individual cucumbers. Okay, but what about cars? They will be soon. It's important to understand how this person thinks. Before moving on to the car, it's worth mentioning another important project of Wurm's. Erwin studied at the University of Applied Arts and the Academy of Fine Arts in Vienna. He wanted to become a painter but ended up in a sculpture class. According to the artist himself, at first he was not very happy about it because he associated sculpture with, quote, giant black pieces of stone covered with pigeon droppings. Nevertheless, he began to study it thoroughly. He thought a lot about and analyzed sculpture as an object, volume, texture, material, and finally, as time. All of Wurm's work is dedicated to understanding what sculpture can be, the potential of sculpture and the potential of anything to become a sculpture. It is from these considerations that one of the main projects of his life, 1 Minute Sculptures, was born. 1 minute is a somewhat conventional name. In the context of Wurm's sculptures, it means that 1 minute is a very short period of time, and therefore these are rather short-lived sculptures. The main idea of the project is to invite the viewer to make a certain interaction with an ordinary household object dictated by the instructions. The sculpture exists as long as the person performs this specific action. Have you seen the Red Hot Chili Peppers video for Can't Stop? This is 1 Minute Sculptures. Yes, the whole video is a demonstration of Wurm's work, where the band members are part of the exhibition for the period of time when the song is playing. Wurm conceived of the 1 Minute Sculptures while reflecting on Michelangelo's idea that a sculpture should and could roll down from above and still exist for 500 years. Nothing lasts long today. We don't repair things anymore, we throw them away, Wurm said. That's how he realized that the modern analog of Michelangelo's concept would be to create an art object that would exist for only a short period of time. Eventually, he came up with the idea of interaction and capturing it with a photo. By photographing his 1 minute sculptures, Wurm could show them to the world. How was I, a young artist, supposed to send my heavy sculptures to other countries? I needed something light. That's how I came up with the idea of photography. The sculptures could disappear, but I could always make them again or reinvent them in the future. You see, the guy wasn't looking for reasons not to do something or to do it only the way it's done. He followed a simple but brilliant logic. I don't have a key, but I have something better, a picture of a key. We can't insert this passage from Pirates of the Caribbean because of copyright, but you get the idea. If I can't send sculptures, I'll send photo sculptures. His first series of photographs, which are now in the collections of Tata Modern and the Pompidou Center, was created for an exhibition in Bremen in 1997. I arrived 10 days before the opening and didn't bring anything with me. Everyone was quite nervous. I asked if I could use the materials that were lying around and the people who worked there if they would agree to participate in the shooting for the photos. By working with senses in this way, Wurm eventually developed his signature style. When we can look at our reality from an absurd point of view, then we will be able to see something else, something fundamentally new. Wurm works with many materials, including ready-made objects. However, his main tool is actually a biting humor. Drawing inspiration from conceptual performance art, Wurm uses the absurd to reflect on Western views of commodities, food, ethics, and philosophy. Although his practice may seem fun at first glance, underneath its comedy lies a critique of the dark aspects of the post-war society in which the artist grew up. He often says that in our world there are completely incomparable things in parallel. Someone is flying into space, and someone is still hunting with a bow and arrow on the same planet at the same time. And so we finally come to why I'm telling you all this on the Car History channel. At a certain point in his career, Erwin Wurm began to regularly use cars in his art because they are rich in cultural symbolism. Connected to the themes of consumerism and excess, cars offer interactive possibilities and provide a familiar yet influential basis for his exploration of humor, absurdity, and social critique. One of Wurm's visualization techniques is the distortion of scale. For example, Erwin Wurm's sculpture Narrow House reflects a situation in which the artist was allocated a very small area to exhibit his work, and with this very compressed house, he wanted to show how much his potential was compressed. Already in the process of building the installation, when he entered the house, he felt a certain claustrophobia and compared this feeling with the restriction of his desires and possibilities to the society of the 50s and 60s when he was growing up in Austria. One of his most ambitious series is fat sculptures. When a person loses or gains weight, they change shape. This is a natural process, just like sculpture. Addressing the issue of obesity, the artist explores the relationship between power, wealth, and body weight. He criticizes the modern value system, as the world of advertising encourages us to stay slim, but consume more and more at the same time. When the volume of an object changes, its content and meaning also change, he comments. When I was young, we used to call these cars driven by the rich and powerful fat cars, referring to the status of their owners. It is said that over time, the owner becomes more and more like his dog. I also thought about fat cars. When you own a car, the same thing happens. The car becomes like you, reflecting our society. He did not choose the cars for his installations by chance. These were cars that had become icons for their countries of origin, such as the Italian Ferrari and the German Porsche. It emphasized the idea of criticizing the insatiable consumer habits of the rich. The first of his series, the Fat Car, was developed together with designers from Opel. But they were unable to achieve the shape Wurm envisioned because of the technical limitations of the time. Technically, he added voluminous layers of foam and fiberglass to the existing car frame, turning its structural lines into a swollen mass. For almost 20 years, he has made many iterations of various cars that are exhibited in the world's most famous museums. Installed in the Brooklyn Bridge Park, the Walk to Abbey transformed a Volkswagen microbus into a rounded, mustard-colored, functional walk to Abbey. At the Hyundai Card Storage in the Art Space in Itaewon Road, downtown Seoul, there is a dumping car. The latest work in the series is a Mini Coupe from the 60s, which Wurm chose as the quintessential British car. I like the fact that Wurm has been constantly exploring new technologies and materials throughout his long career and actively using everything that progress offers him. 20 years after his first FET car in August 2021, he released a 15-second video called Breeze In, Breeze Out, as an NFT through the Misa website based on the Flow blockchain. I honestly don't know what these words mean, and a person born in 1954 created art based on all this. It's a breathing red Porsche in a green landscape, a reference to the time of the first Fat Car. Fat Cars is Wurm's largest and longest-running automotive project. But not the only one. Renault 25 is one of the exhibits of the Louisiana Museum, which the artist has redesigned, giving it a caricatured form. This work is dedicated to the French philosopher Gilles Deleuze and his book on film theory. Cinema, image, movement from 1983, just like Renault 25. As I sometimes refer to my grandson's science fiction and comic books, the car was built at the time his book came out. I think no other object has changed life as radically as the automobile. We control it. It protects us. It's a form of representation. We can define ourselves through the car, and it's extremely interesting. The Renault 25 sculpture is a distorted car that imitates the image of cars in comic books. To convey speed, they are elongated and drawn at an angle. This distortion of a well-known object will change people's perception of it and make them laugh, he explains. Changing the content of the object brings us into a kind of parallel world. Another work by Wurm is a truck. The author manipulates the shape of the vehicle in an unexpected way, creating a surreal effect. The 5.5-meter-long Mercedes demonstrates the enormous variation in scale that Wurm works with. He plays with the physical properties of materials and the expected functionality of objects, pushing the boundaries of our understanding of form and space. Another curved car, this time a telekinetically curved Volkswagen bus. The technique is already familiar to the author, but it is the choice of car that plays a role here. This boost became a symbol of the counterculture of the 60s and 70s. By bending it into a shape that contradicts logical explanation, the author hints at supernatural or psychic intervention. The sculpture Flying Car UFO. The author modified the car so that it looks like a UFO, combining the themes of transportation, technology, and fantasy. In case you didn't recognize it, it used to be a Porsche. Wurm always chooses cars that are not ordinary, but rather those that are the most significant and recognizable for the industry and culture. The Volkswagen Golf, by the same author Stagio, became one of the heroes of the Discipline in Subjectivity series in 2006. The car, tilted at an angle and leaning on a marker, literally illustrates the name of disciplinary subjectivity. Other sculptures in the series include a bed standing on a mop and bulky concrete blocks propped up by an orange. This is another play on contrasts of form, size, and meaning, and flirting with the absurd. I have already said that throughout his career, Wurm kept up with the development of technology and tried all possible methods of expression. He also paid attention to such a format as video installations. Videotell shows a couple driving a car through Vienna. As they begin to discuss what might happen if one of them ate a special kind of sandwich, the car suddenly starts to drive vertically up the wall of the house. The car stops, and the couple gets out and goes down the wall. Interpreted by Eva Maria Stadler, curator of the Belvedere Gallery, Erwin Wurm plays on the irritated psyches of acceptance in all his sculptures, films, and installations. A brief moment of oversight can change everything in a way that would have been unimaginable a moment ago. One of the artist's latest large-scale projects to date is Yorkshire Sculpture Park is a leading international center for contemporary sculpture. It was founded by Peter Muir back in the day. As part of the exhibition, you can see a sculpture, the German couch, a German sofa, which is a Mercedes made of aluminum, but compressed on one side, turned into a kind of psychoanalyst's couch. There is also a series of crash hoses in different materials and scales. Yes, these are sausages that fell on the car and broke the roof. Well, what do you expect? Sausages and pickled cucumbers are the basis, the base, the soil, and the foundation of Gourmet's work over the years. As a result, we realize that cars are the perfect canvas for highlighting certain manifestos. They are incredibly rich in cultural symbolism, which opens up endless possibilities for the artist's imagination. Here, the focus is on meaning, on context, much more than on form. In conclusion, I would like to quote Erwin Wurm himself. At some point, I realized that everything around me could become material for an artwork. Absolutely everything. It was a decisive step. After that, everything became possible. Erwin Wurm is one of dozens, even hundreds, of artists who have used cars to criticize, protest, or shock the public. I will definitely talk about others in future episodes, but in the meantime, please write in the comments if you were interested and which of Wurm's works you liked the most. Thank you to everyone who watched the video to the end. And if you want to support content production as well, we've made a bunch of convenient ways for you. You can subscribe to Buy Me a Coffee, getting early access to episodes and additional videos. Don't forget to like this episode and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already.